there any declaration of conflict of interest, potential conflict of interest? Celeste?
None.
Catherine?
None.
Sue?
Not that I know of at this time.
Erica?
No.
Thank you. We have a recognition tonight of a previous SEPRD employee, Vicki Yarbrough. On April 4th, the community and district lost a wonderful person with the passing of Vicki Yarbrough. Miss Vicki, as she was known by so many, helped form the district preschool many years ago and had a profound impact on countless children through her dedicated service, love of life, and a beautiful smile. Vicki worked for the district for over 30 years before leaving SEPRD in 2015. She began her career in aquatics, lifeguarding, and teaching swimming lessons. She later transitioned to working with the youth in our community, hosting programs around the district, the Pre-Youth Center, including programs housed in the Girl Scout House and what is now known as the Mary Blake Playhouse. Later, after the youth center was built, the district was able to shift youth programming and eventually a preschool to that location. Those that knew her loved her for her warmth, her ability to meet children where they were at, and her special gift of reaching out with love and kindness to all that she met. Please join me and the entire district and community in recognizing Vicki's life and sending our condolences to her family. Thank you for your service to the district. I knew Vicki personally, and she was a great person, and a lot of people were bitterly disappointed when she stepped down from her position several years ago. Thank you again, Vicki. We also have tonight recognition of SEPRD Employee of the Month, and tonight it is Kelly Smith, and we have a few words to say about her. Kelly Smith has been employed as a preschool teacher for over 5 years. During that time, Kelly has continually shown an amazing ability to connect with the children enrolled in the preschool and help prepare them for kindergarten. Over the past few weeks, Kelly has taken on additional responsibilities and supervision of the important programs that serve our community. Thank you, Kelly. Done a great job. Is she here tonight? Okay. Approval of board minutes. We have minutes for our regular meeting and a board workshop also on April 13th. Have you had a chance to review the minutes, Sue?
Well, I have a question on the bottom of page 4 with public comment.
Have you got your microphone on?
I have a question about on the bottom of page 4, public comment, of where Mr. Huseman said, the sentence doesn't make sense. So it says the district hiring the Klosh Group, which he was backwards from how it should have been. What is that sentence supposed to be?
I believe the public comment said that the process was backwards from how it should have been handled, so there's an extra, and a he or a was instead of a said.
Okay, is that going to, you propose an amendment to the minutes?
Well, I had one other question.
Okay. I
So-
cannot hear what Scott was saying.
Do you want to do one thing at a time or both?
I'm
Do you
sorry?
want me to ask my second question, or do you want to talk about the first?
I just wondered if the minutes needed amending. Is there a motion to amend the minutes?
Yeah, I think what Sue found was a grammatical error, so you can approve the minutes
Okay.
as amended if you'd like at the right time, but she says she has one other
All right.
question.
So, and that was, a gentleman named Robert, I presume it was Robert Gazewood. He has a comment at the very, on the bottom of page 5, but I thought there was, correct me if I'm mistaken, I thought when Mr. Hernandez spoke the first time that Robert responded to that. Am I not correct?
You might be right. I'm not sure.
So, Mr. Hernandez offered public comment during the public comment portion of the meeting, as well as during the supplemental budget. The board opened up the public comment again, and I think it was during that public comment that Mr. Gazewood responded to what he had said.
So under new business, where it's
Yes,
located?
correct. Under new business, under the supplemental budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So.
Your question answered?
Asked and answered. I only have the one amendment of a grammatical issue on the bottom of page 4 for clarification.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on the minutes?
So I'd like to move that we accept the minutes from March 23rd, 2021, with the grammatical amendment.
Okay. Is there a second?
And
Any more, without any further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And we have the minutes.
Catherine's and I.
You're okay with that, Catherine? Okay. We have Catherine Parker, who's on Zoom here with us tonight. We have the workshop minutes of April 13th.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the April 13th workshop minutes.
I would second.
Second. All those, without any further discussion, all those in favor, please signify aye.
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 Aye. Catherine?
We lost the connection.
She just sent me a message that says she lost
We
audio.
lost the connection. It looks like it's connecting back up,
Okay.
but I think we have a quorum.
Yeah, you do.
Just a waiting. Go ahead, Mike.
We're good? I think we've approved those minutes. Thank you. The next item on agenda is public comment and rules of decorum. Scott, would you like to read the rules of decorum for us, please?
Sure. There's a lengthy that's included in the board packet. I think just for the sake of time, most of the folks know the rules of decorum, and they were all given a handout as they came in and signed up for public comment. If you'd like, I can read them, or we can just move on to the public comment portion of the meeting.
I do not have a list of the speakers tonight.
Yeah, I do right here. If you want, I can share it with you, or I can call
Why
them
don't you
up.
go ahead and announce the first
Okay.
speaker? That'd be fine.
First person on the list is Pat Vucek.
Thank you.
Sarah Dickey from Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood represents governments including cities, counties, state agencies, and special districts as bond counsel and disclosure counsel in a wide variety of financings. On 2 November 2020, Ms. Dickey, in an email acquired through public information request, informed Sunset Empire on the restrictions of projects financed. Those strict restrictions included the following. The district can only finance real property that is needed for district purposes. Purchasing property with the sole purpose of turning around and selling it to another entity is not a district purpose under ORS 266. Selling all or part of property financed to a private entity for use in construction of a hotel or to another local government entity for lease to a nonprofit chamber of commerce or leasing to a private business could present lending of credit issues. Long-term leasing to nonprofits could present lending of credit and federal tax concerns. The sale or lease of some or all of the finance property to a private user could jeopardize the tax-exempt status of the financing. So Sunset Empire is sitting on a 100% financed $2.5 million property that needs $5.2 million in repairs. It cannot be turned around and sold. It cannot be sold or leased to a private user or leased to a local government agency. The district cannot even afford to partially tear down and abate the asbestos in the oldest parts of the building. Does this meet the definition of a manageable debt within a carefully crafted budget that will generate millions in revenue that feed our local economy? This board has no plan for the additional revenue required and is currently working to spend thousands more in taxpayer dollars on RFPs and consultants in an attempt to rectify their poor decision.
And do we have any other speakers?
Yeah, next is John Huesman.
I'm going to begin with a couple of questions that I have that I think are important. First of all, how much does it cost per month to operate Broadway Middle School? It's important from a transparency standpoint, and it's also important from a sustainability standpoint. Can you actually afford to pay for it month after month, year after year? Second question I have is how much is SEPRD losing per month on discount passes? This relates directly to the very poor cost recovery that you have right now of about 17%. 4 years ago it was up about 40%. So how much are you giving away every month? That's really important to know. The biggest thing I wanted to talk about today is asbestos. I wrote you a letter that I'm sure you have in your packet that you've seen. No engineering firm will state that Broadway Middle School is safe to occupy. Why is that? It's real simple. No exposure level to asbestos is safe. I'll repeat, no exposure to asbestos is safe. This is a science. Google it. It'll tell you that right there. So what you're doing is you're putting all of your employees at risk, and you're putting all of the users at risk when you send them into Broadway Middle School. The asbestos is there. I have to wonder how much you all care about your users. If you're willing to expose them, I have to wonder how much you care about your employees if you're willing to expose them. This is going on every day that you're using that place. You're choosing to ignore the science, and that just plain is wrong. You seem to be counting on the fact that mesothelioma won't start to show up for 10 years. It has a long incubation period. It still could be coming. You're still exposing people every day, and you're doing it deliberately, very deliberately, in an attempt to justify your decision to purchase Broadway Middle School. The truth is, you didn't need that space. We as a city didn't need that space right now, but you wanted it.
Thank you.
Next up is Marty Weiss.
I first need to say that I am so sorry to hear about the loss of our Miss Vicky. She taught me how to swim 48 years, no, I was 48. I was 48, so that would be, about 19 years ago that she taught me how to swim when I was working at the front desk. And she was a wonderful gal and a good friend, and she will be missed. to the Board of Directors of SEPRD. Can you hear me? Is this high? There we go. According to CNN, 47 mass shootings have occurred in the months from March 16th through April 16th. On Tuesday, March 30th, one of the songs being played in the pool during the 10 o'clock swim was Pumped Up Kids by Foster the People. Some of the lyrics go like this: all the other kids with the pumped up kicks, you better run, outrun my gun. You better run, faster than my bullet. I sent 2 emails regarding this incident, one to Board Chair Catherine Parker, who thanked me for my feedback and told me to have a great evening. Really? Is that all the Board Chair has to say about this egregious situation? The other email went to Justin Smith, the pool manager. I am relieved to report that Justin responded to my email because the music being played the next day was far more appropriate. However, the mere fact that the lifeguards on duty are at liberty to play any genre of music they feel like playing is unacceptable and must be addressed. I asked the board to establish strict guidelines as to the genre of music allowed to be played. Furthermore, the music should be appropriate for those who are using the pool. I don't think Highway to Hell by AC/DC is an appropriate selection for the audience, especially for those participating in the morning arthritis class. I would also ask that gangster rap, indie pop, and heavy metal be prohibited from being played at any time. Please call an emergency meeting to deal with this most urgent matter. I would appreciate a response to this letter. I ask that this letter be included in the minutes of tonight's board meeting, and I'm asking the board to take a stand. I asked several years ago for this to happen when Veronica Russell was board chair, and she laughed at me. This is no laughing matter. This has to stop. We need some structure and guidelines for the lifeguards to follow. Skylar, do I have to give you a copy, or will you use the copy I emailed you?
I have the copy you emailed.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next up is Jackie Evans.
I have 2 issues in regards to the RFP process. My first issue is with the interviews, if necessary, statement in the timeline. I'm assuming the if necessary caveat is based on the possibility of only having one submission. Even if that is the case, the interview process is an essential part of the due diligence. The submission or submissions may fulfill the requirements outlined in the request. However, the interview determines the best fit to align with the mission and vision of SEPRD and meet the level of collaborative partnership that is needed to have a successful outcome. My other issue is the timeframe for completion of the RFP process. In last month's meeting, as a board, you decided to table any decision on leasing space until after the RFP process is complete. With the current board's term ending in June, it is inappropriate for the outgoing board to encumber the new board with a binding contract without any say in the selection. It is not feasible for the outgoing board to create an action plan with the selected consultants before the end of your term. I ask that the board enter and approve a motion to modify the timeline of the RFP to allow the new board to review submissions, conduct the interviews, and select and award the contract. And I do ask that this be included in the board packet for this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is Al Hernandez.
I wanted to comment on agenda item 12D, Al Hernandez. I see you have the documents in front of you, and I just wanted to add the following. I consider Seaside my permanent address and do not know how the voter registration was changed. I never changed it. During our remodeling discussion, I assumed we would be back after remodeling was done. Then COVID hit, and everything came to a stop. I did reach out to the director to identify the boundary lines of the district and asked if it mirrored Seaside District Number 10 and if there were any other requirements, to which his response was yes and no. I took that to say I was in the district. Maybe I should have looked more carefully at the language. Either way, I consider Seaside my permanent address, and I feel I am eligible to run. Notwithstanding the above, I feel the current board has a conflict on this issue and is not in a position to hear any of the issues, but should recluse itself from making any decision on this matter, but rather should table the matter until after the election and let the new board make any decision that may be needed. On a side note also, what I would like to add is, on the asbestos, the board needs to realize that the asbestos issue is more than just people getting sick right now. That exposes the district to a major lawsuit should anybody become sick or file a grievance against the district for any kind of health matters. And it's an issue that the district knows about it and still exposed people to it, either their own employees or the children. It is potentially a very large liability for the district. And on the point Jackie was making, I would like to add that whenever there's a short period for an RFP, if there is not enough response, it is not unheard of to extend the period for the RFPs to be looked at, to be submitted, and get more RFPs into the coffers to be reviewed by the board. So don't necessarily just do the minimum to be legally required, but do what's right and try and get everybody on board and everybody to know what the issue is and let them know that they can bid on the particular job before you just close the door and review it and say this is a winner when you only have one selection. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's the end of public comment, at least those that signed up.
Thank you. Correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? Skylar?
Have an additional, like to offer public comment?
I'm sorry?
You have an additional member of the audience that would like to offer public comment?
Yes, you're back.
Right here?
Oh, is there more public comment? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I did not hear that. And who is the speaker,
You don't have
please?
to time me, it's not going to take any.
Okay.
Sorry, can you state your name? Thank you, Diane.
I want to know about the forum on Thursday. I watched this gentleman here, and he said we can have 50 people in here, and then I heard that Arcade said that it should be closed to the public. So we need to clear that up because, you know, people don't want to show up and turn away. That's my question. I really would like that.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Is there any further public comment?
I don't believe so. No one else is on my sign-in sheet.
Thank you. Correspondence then.
The only items of correspondence would be the documents that I just received. I also received correspondence from Marty Weiss, which I think she read during her public comment. I'm not sure if that letter was shared with the board, but all of these documents will be included in the board packet for the permanent record.
All right, thank you. Let's go on to reviewing financials then. March 2021. Yeah. 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 Has everyone had a chance to look everything over? Sue? Yeah, it looks like we have a pretty good status of our ending fund balance so far. I've looked over the finances and I have not seen anything unusual on the reports for the departmental finances. Celeste, do you have any questions?
No, I just wanted to point out that, and get confirmation that it looks like this is now is tracking to the supplemental budget, is that correct?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah, I saw that in there. That's, the SRC has got its own spreadsheet. That is new.
Yeah, I have no questions, and it looks like, from my perspective, it looks like we're on track.
Yeah.
And that so far the supplemental budget is holding up, now that we're a month in, which is good news.
Yes, it is. Sue Coddington, way over there. Do you have any comments about the first report, the revenue and expense report?
Questions? Looks pretty good.
Yes. Thank you. Erica?
Any questions right now?
Thank you. We can move on to the check register. We can look at the balance sheet as well. And then the check register begins on page 26 of our agendas. I've looked through these and I am comfortable with these payments. I don't have any big questions personally. Celeste?
No questions.
Sue?
No questions.
Erica? Is there a motion to approve the financial reports, the revenue and expense, the check register, and the balance sheet?
Nope, we've got Catherine.
Hello? Catherine?
Hey, I would just like to point out that there's one small typo on page 11.
Page 11?
The beginning Broadway.
Typo on page 11, and that is the summary sheet?
Is she there?
Catherine, are you there?
Where is the typo?
She shared with me,
Anybody spot it?
Mike, Catherine shared with me an earlier phone call where the typo is. So if you look in the blue area under the Sunset Recreation Center Fund, it says beginning Broadway Field Fund balance. It should say beginning Sunset Recreation Center Fund balance.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe that's what she's referring to. That's
Okay.
what we had discussed earlier today in a phone call.
That's a good note.
So I make a motion to accept the financials with the typo correction
On page 11.
on page 11, yes.
Just quick, Skylar, when you took over, did you guys increase the amount of events you guys are doing now, or has it stayed kind of the same?
Stayed pretty, we have taken some events and either modified them or dropped them and then added some different ones over the course of time. Yeah, I'd say my best guess right now would be that we've added, but just probably a couple since then.
Yeah, sometimes I just wonder in terms of like the cost to run versus, is it, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that can be something we'd talk about probably more strategically overall, but, and based on the new building, how to utilize that more. But I still feel like eventually we need to talk about the grant piece and try to fold that in here.
Yeah.
So, and I just was curious if the event piece is you know, if it's kind of stayed the same in your, you know, historically, and I think
To go
there's
back to
certain
that.
events that the community counts on, you know, like the Easter egg hunt. I mean, that, I went to the Easter egg hunt, so, but also, you know, maybe there's other ways to kind of bring in that revenue.
Okay.
But something to, I guess, parking lot for when we dig into the strategy.
Is there a second on the minute, on the motion to
Oh,
approve
I second.
financials?
My bad. Did,
Any further discussion, questions? All those in favor, please signify aye.
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 Heard that. Was that Catherine?
Yeah.
Thank you. Financials have been passed, accepted. We're on to old business. Doesn't appear we have any old business. New business. Item A, Skylar, a proposal for the Safe Kids North Coast discussion and potential decision. And that is on page 35 of your packet.
Yeah, so I just included a little short summary and then the email attachment that I received from Safe Kids North Coast. Obviously, this is a worldwide nonprofit organization that helps families with education programming here locally. They do that, as well as some bicycle safety courses, helmet provision for young kids that are starting to ride their bike, and then help with provision and education about car seats. So I think there's an opportunity potentially for the district to take over as primary lead on this. It's kind of a hosted effort through a lot of government agencies and nonprofits throughout the county. But I think that would come with some expense and staff resources being dedicated to the program. I didn't feel like this was my decision to make, so I'm bringing it to the board for them to potentially bring questions back to Mr. Sahlberg, or if the board has a feeling one way or the other right now, then we can go from there. But let me know if you need more information or what I can do to help.
So Skylar, I have a couple of questions about this. I think the work that this group does seems really admirable. Unfortunately, I'm not versed enough to know if anybody else in our community provides these services currently, so I'd be interested in that. I'd also be interested in knowing how funding works for this. Is this strictly a volunteer kind of an initiative and campaign, or is there some revenue stream attached to taking on this piece? And also, I'd be curious whether or not you have access to the expenses that it takes, that are involved, and staff time, if they have record of that.
Those are great questions. I can get more information on those questions if you want to, maybe if you can follow up with me and send them to me. I would say to the first question, I think there are other partners and agencies that are providing this service in the communities of our county. Primarily, I would say that the majority of those trainings or opportunities are coming through police departments and fire departments in Seaside, Warrenton, Astoria, and then probably through the county sheriffs. I know our own fire department in Seaside has been really active in providing some of these services in the past. I don't know how Safe Kids North Coast, exactly their involvement with those activities or their their touching in Seaside. So I could definitely get more information, or we could invite Mr. Sahlberg or another one of the involved parties to come and share more information if you'd like.
Mm-hmm. I think I would add to that, I didn't think of this before, but I'm wondering what their jurisdiction is, like what is their service area? And whether that aligns with the districts, or whether they're serving outside of the district's service area?
Yeah, I believe they are serving outside of the district. I think the area, from what I understand, is the entire Clatsop County.
I was also wondering, Skylar, if there's any overlap to what is already in-house that you guys might have. I mean, you guys have, pretty highly trained staff already, or I think there's also volunteers in the community who potentially could do this. I'm not saying that, obviously, this is a more put-together proposal and organization, but I wonder if some of these things could just be addressed in-house too, and maybe not cost the...
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It might be something that we explore as a partnership to provide the service with some of our local police department, fire department, and see
Right.
where we can kind of fill in the service area as needed.
Especially with your child care, you have
Yeah.
a group of kids and could offer it to others or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I think if we answer some of those questions, that might give us more info.
Okay.
And I would add that my experience with, I'm experienced with this program that was offered up in Yakima, Washington, where I worked as a nurse for many years. And basically, it was something that the hospitals put on in association with the police and the fire department. It was a huge event, but huge impact for our children. Now, the other aspect is I understood there was something about car seats, which is a huge, I would be questioning, because it's so important, and so, not just important, just critical for our infant safety, that we make sure what the liabilities are, because there is special training that goes on. You can't just say, hey, I'll help you put a car seat in your car for your infant. So I think there's a lot of more information we need to understand before we choose to do this or not, but it is certainly amazing and very helpful to the community.
Thank you, Sue. I would like to add, there are several pages submitted by the Safe Kids, and I'm looking at their key partners on page 38 of the agenda packet. It would be interesting to have more conversations with these partners and see who would be the best lead agency, perhaps. Skylar, do you think it's possible we could have a workshop with some of these partners or representatives to discuss this in the very near future? I'm not sure how it fits into the budget proposal that we're going to hear about later on tonight, but safety is really the highest priority of the district, regardless of other opinions in our pools and all our facilities and programs. And I know the police department has given free helmets to skaters and bicyclists, and we have had a really good bicycle safety program, for instance. And it would be a shame to lose this program in the community. So I'm interested in seeing how we can continue to contribute to that.
Okay. Maybe it would be appropriate for me to reach out to Mr. Sahlberg and gauge where the other community feedback has come from. There isn't like a group email that I've been involved in on responding to his request, so I'm not sure what some of the other partners listed are doing. Maybe there's someone that's planning on stepping up. So let me get some more information and report back to the board if that's okay with everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that's a good idea. We'll just table this and work on it in the near future.
So Skylar, I have a question.
Sure.
Because under key partners, it lists us already.
Correct.
So what part have we played in this already?
So I think we've played I would call us a convener. We've hosted some of these activities and opportunities for education in the past at some of our special events. For a couple years, we had a special event called the Dash to Safety, and this group was present at the, there was like a family safety fest at the end of that run with opportunities for people to get educated or more information, or even, claim a free helmet or car seat help if they needed it. That's my only involvement with this program since I've been around, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't been involved in other portions of our district or in other education opportunities.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? I'll move on to the next agenda item. Item B, proposal from Northwest Regional Education Service District. And that in your packet is page 40, Um, And that goes to page 43. Skylar, would you like to tell us about this?
Yeah, sure. I'm
Proposal?
happy to share what I know and outline some of it for the board and the public record in this document. So we had heard that Northwest Regional had some interest in part of the property. They are selling their property in Astoria and need a combination of administrative space, classrooms, and meeting space, functional meeting space for their purposes. I was able to meet with some of those folks in person and via Zoom at the SRC for a little while, and we talked about more of what that would look like and how that would work potentially. I know we are a long ways away from potentially having a tenant in the SRC, but I was asked to gather more information, and that was what my purpose was. They shared, as you can see on the map that is provided on the second page of this proposal, their interest in 3 classrooms along the west corridor, the computer lab area. We've been using it as a large conference room since we took occupancy of the building, and then the administrative space, as well as the counseling wing, which is that area on the southwest corner of the building. They also would like to use the bathrooms that are down a little bit further along the west hall. That wouldn't be exclusive use. That would be shared use with other programs and services that were in the building. They have a similar agreement with other government agencies throughout their service district, including one in Tillamook. All totaled, we believe the square footage to be around 7,600 square feet. I think there's some other information that I wanted to point out. The agency is open to sharing costs for modifications to the space or building improvements. And I think that that's something to be considered or discussed, including repair of the HVAC system. Their staff has been in this building significantly over the course of the last few years. They had a preschool classroom in the space prior to COVID. They also have used the space for community meetings and other activities. And they have their lead administrator, Elizabeth Friedman, for the county, worked as an administrator in the middle school for a number of years with the Seaside School District. So I think they're very familiar. Again, they have existing rental agreements with Tillamook School District. And if we were to proceed down the road of discussing a lease, there would probably need to be some hard installation of doors or temporary walls to secure their part of the property. They don't necessarily need it secured to the point that anybody couldn't reach in or we couldn't have emergency access through those areas, but they'd like to kind of secure the building, and that makes sense for access purposes. So they're very interested in the property. They understand kind of our timing. I shared with them that if we proceeded, we would be hesitant to sign a long-term lease, but something short-term, maybe 12 to 24 months. And they were very open to that. I think they are kind of in a transition with adjusting to how education and their services work in the COVID time. So they're open to discussing further with you. They have representatives from their group that would love to come to a future meeting and chat a little bit further. Their timeline is to be out of their building sometime around the middle of summer. So the timeline for us is, I guess, reflective of that potentially. That's my part, unless there's questions, which I'm happy to field.
Has there been any discussion around lease rates?
There has been a little bit. They were kind enough to send the agreement, that they have with the Tillamook School District, and that includes the lease rate. And I don't know if I can quote the price right now, but it's a fair price, I guess, for what the space, which is similar in total square feet to what they would be asking for here. I also haven't done any research in what commercial office space is leasing for in our area. So I think that's something that we'd probably have to draw on some expertise from some outside folks to make sure that the district's best interests were represented.
And in the document, it says that the spaces would be used to provide programs and services to children and families in our community. Does that mean that they think that staff will be on site? Do they think their clients will be on site? Is that what you're understanding?
Both, yeah. I think they would have staff on site. I mean, during non-COVID, they'd have staff on site daily. They would also like to potentially bring back a preschool space or an early education space in one of those classrooms, and then have meeting space. They do a lot of meetings with teachers, with parents, group meetings, so that computer lab space that they requested would be appropriate for that purpose, as far as they're anticipating.
Question about the space. I had read the March 27th letter long ago.
Uh-huh.
So these rooms, is that negotiable for them for safety?
For safety, is that what you said?
Uh-huh, since their location?
Yeah,
This is
so that's
room
that's
1,
what they
2, and 3.
requested. I think it is potentially negotiable. What do you mean, I guess, for safety?
Well, I'm just concerned about the location of, I did not know that they were interested in, are they asking for this area?
Correct. Yeah, this is their request. This isn't me. I haven't negotiated with them or offered them anything. This is what they're familiar with the building. This is what they feel like would fit for their needs.
I guess I don't understand, because I thought there was going to be substantial work on this part of the building before any kind of public use. And do they know about that, or do they realize that?
Yeah, so they understand, like I said, they understand the current state of the building pretty well, I think. And they also understand what we're doing right now is going through kind of our process to plan out the best use of the building and what the building might look at. I think those points aside, they're still interested in the property. They still feel like it could be a really good fit for what they need. But I think that's something that the board would need to weigh in this proposal, is what is the future of that part of the building, and how does it work with this relationship if we move forward.
And it sounds like, and Sue, if you're talking about because this part of the building is the older part of the building, is that your
Correct.
concern? That it's the
Yeah.
older part of the building? I think contrary to some of the public comment that we had, asbestos contained, I mean, I agree that we'd have to do due diligence, as would our tenant, but asbestos contained, as long as it's not removed, is commonplace in older buildings. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's unsafe to inhabit a building. I'm not an asbestos expert, but I'm married to a general contractor, and that's my understanding. This building, the entire building, was occupied by Seaside School District only a couple years ago, and that was not the concern. The concern for that building is it was no longer suitable for use for education, for public education, and there's also concern that all of the community's children would be in the same location and be wiped out if there was a tsunami. I was involved in that campaign, and I feel fairly clear that that was the reason for looking at the school relocation. The discussion was not necessarily around the asbestos. There are some condition problems in the building, but it sounds like this particular potential lessor is interested in participating in whatever costs would be required to make it a space that's usable for their needs. So from my perspective, this was a building that was in use a couple of years ago by a school district. And again, I think we can do the safety and upgrades that we would need to, especially if they're interested in participating in the cost to do that. That would be my opinion.
Thank you, Celeste.
Skylar, did you happen to reach out to the Tualatin Hills?
I did. So
Okay.
the agreement that Tualatin Hills has with NWRESD is not similar to the agreement that they're proposing here. What they do is reserve a certain amount of preschool spots in their preschool for the students that are enrolled in Northwest Regional ESD programs. So it's not a facility agreement, it's more of a programmatic arrangement that they have. But they did report back that they enjoy working with the agency and have found the relationship to be, a good one.
And so,
They're like their 990 or check? I mean, I'd be curious. I mean, I think we probably all should look them up a bit more and do our own research. Just financially,
Sure.
where they stand, et cetera.
Yeah. So I haven't done that. That's a great
Yeah.
point. I think, sorry, I don't even know, a 990 is for a nonprofit?
Yeah, I mean, it's all public,
Public
so
record.
you should be able to Google it.
Yeah, I actually think they're a government agency.
Oh, okay.
But that's my understanding. They're a government agency that has kind of broad impact throughout kind of our economic region. So I know they're in Clatsop, Tillamook, and at least parts of Washington County, and I would anticipate Columbia County as well.
Or I wonder if they have institutional funding from the government.
Yeah.
And are still,
That's a
anyway,
great-
that's
a great
something we
point.
should look into.
Yeah.
Because if either or, that makes the arrangement a lot more sustainable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found Elizabeth Friedman, who is involved in some of our CLT meetings. She is really approachable and knowledgeable. She's worked for them for a number of years, and I think she, if I'm not mistaken, she's kind of the lead administrator for our county. So she has a good amount of experience to offer.
I think the alignment for a partner is particularly interesting, that they're so in alignment with the district. I guess, so one thing I just want to clarify, and if I recall, and maybe you recall, Skylar, I just want to, in response again to some of our public comment earlier, that partnership with other entities to be housed in a building or leased under our current finance structure is acceptable. Am I correct in that? That's what I remember Albright talking about.
Yeah, so I think, to be honest, I mean, there's the email that was referenced before, that was the first that the district had heard about this. And there's many other government agencies who have found a way to use this type of financing structure to do what this proposal is suggesting. And in follow-up conversations with the attorney that wrote that email, as well as David, as well as other folks who have done a lot of this work, we have found that there are ways to do it. So it would require us to do some more investment and research on how to do it, but there is ways to do it, especially for a government agency, I think, that's providing similar services. And I know that you all received an email today from Mary Blake, a citizen who kind of recounted the district history, and she provided at least one anecdote from when this government financing was used, and then the property was later sold to the city of Seaside, and that's the Able House property and where the public library sits now. So, and I could cite a few other ones, examples. So I think this is a little bit of a gray area for us, but it is navigable. And I think with the right people, touching the right people and getting information from them, we could explore this more.
So I would suggest that might be a process that we look like. This looks like a good match from my perspective, particularly if they're aware that, that we're in a strategic planning process and they're willing to partner under the condition that a strategic plan may lay out a different use for the building eventually. I think it seems like a good match and worth exploring and worth putting that due diligence into finding out what we need to do in order to be still in alignment with what we can do under the flex lease. I also recall regarding the sale of the property or sale of portion of the property, I remember one of the questions that I asked Albright was whether or not there was a prepayment penalty on the loan, so that, for instance, if we sold a substantial portion of the property and needed to close out or pay off the underlying flex lease, that we could do so at any time without penalty and refinance the portion of the building under a new loan if need be.
Yeah, I remember that as well. Thank you.
I'd like to comment. I think this is a strong proposal. I see they have an understanding that we're working with an RFP process right now to further fine-tune our planning. Are they willing to work with us for a while until we meet with our?
I think they are. I
soon to
mean,
be
their
contractor,
timeline
perhaps?
is such that they're hoping to have new space in the summer sometime. But basically, since the pandemic started, all their employees have been working remotely. So I think they're a little bit flexible right now, which is, I guess, a good thing. I guess what I would like to do is be able to give them a response as to where we're at in our process, and maybe it's, hey, we need to look into this option with some attorneys or with our finance consultant and make sure we can make this work, and then get back to them after that, or if there's other direction from the board. And sorry, I should have mentioned this earlier. There's a pesky seagull up there that is trying to get into the building for the last couple days, so that's, oh, maybe that's what he's doing, yeah. I'm not sure exactly what his goal is. Yeah, anyways.
Well, I was on the board when we bought the Able House, and the district needed more administrative space. And so we moved out of what is now the fitness center. Really, we moved maintenance into the garage of the Able House. And we bought it for $155,000. And we got involved with the library. Actually, we dropped a couple of clues to the mayor then that we might be receptive to releasing that property if it was useful for the signing of the library. And in the process, we basically gave the city that property for the same amount. We did not raise the price, but we did make a land swap where we acquired the property where the old skate park used to be, behind the fitness center, which is now the community gardens, the Sunset Gardens, and that's worked out pretty well, and the community has benefited from that. And another interesting case, you talk about leasing and nonprofits and governmental. There are governmental nonprofits such as the Soil and Water Conservation District, and the city bought the Lutheran Church property right there on Broadway. They didn't know what they were going to do with it, and they formed a committee to research it, and they still haven't made a decision. But the water district, the Soil and Water Conservation people have been using that as their offices. Correct. With an agreement with the city. And of course the city visitor center is leasing to the Chamber of Commerce, which is a nonprofit. And so there are many different ways things can be done. There are exceptions to some of the legal hurdles, and I expect us to overcome it.
Could I suggest as a next step, I think it would be, I'd be interested if our fellow board members would be interested in having a workshop with these folks, and maybe leading up to the workshop, doing some of the research regarding any conditions in pulling together a lease with an entity such as this.
Okay.
I would make a motion that we do that.
Yeah.
This letter speaks that they want to take, they want to relocate by July 1st. So we need to hurry.
Although I would suggest someone else make the motion since I'm chairing the meeting.
I mean, the only other thing, Scott, the admin, the office space, I mean, I see that as pretty, I guess what I'm asking is that something that you and the staff would want to retain? It feels like it's a pretty important part.
Yeah, so we would
Even
like,
in 2 years, like if it's just temporary,
Right. Yeah, I think that for all the space that the building has, there is a lack of office space
Exactly,
right now.
yeah.
So there's rooms that could be built out or modified to have office space in there. But this space that they're requesting is already kind of situated for that. And I can understand that's why it's attractive to them, and that's why it's attractive to us. So maybe at that workshop, we can express that
Negotiate that out.
that part of the facility is really important to us. Maybe there's another way we can put their admin space in a different classroom or something, or maybe they understand that that's a really prized part of the building, and
There's a price.
it's harder for us to part for us to part with.
Yep.
I think it would also be good for us to do some of that, excuse me, a bit of a scan on commercial lease rates, which,
And maybe get our hands on the contract with the Tillamook School District.
Yeah, so I have that. It's actually not a contract. It's they signed it as an intergovernmental agreement. So, but I can share that with the board. Yeah, I just got that a couple days ago, so let me share that with you.
and I I think one of the topics of the workshop could be, I think it's interesting that with THP, with Twalton Hills, that they did not, that they actually held slots, and I'm wondering if that's a possibility to do some sort of collaboration around, since we've already got
Yeah.
childcare and preschool services.
I think the preschool option of having those dual services, their preschool that they provided was fantastic, but it was limited in the hours of operation, whereas ours, we try to provide some flexibility for families that are using it. So I think there is definitely some crossover potential.
Great. And so do we need a motion to set up a workshop, or is that something, does that require a motion?
I don't think you do
Okay.
at this point. I think you could make a motion that you want to have a workshop, want the guests to be invited, and are directing staff to, continue doing some of the research pieces that you asked for.
Is there a motion?
So, for formality's sake, I'll make a motion that we schedule a workshop, and in advance of that with the Northwest Regional Education Service District at a time to be determined, and in advance of that time, that we request of staff to do some research and consultation regarding the flex lease and the parameters that will allow for a potential lessee, and to also do some research regarding commercial real estate lease rates in our community.
That was good. Is there a second?
I second.
Erica has seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of arranging this workshop with the NRESD, please say aye.
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 Is that unanimous? Sounded like it passed. Next item, RFP for consultant services update. Skylar.
A couple of the board were appointed to work with representatives from staff as well as our consultants from the Klosh Group. I was pleased that when the application period closed on Tuesday, we did have multiple applications, and I think that we have some really great submissions. I was also pleased that multiple firms, agencies reached out to either myself or to David or to both of us and asked questions about the RFP, and I'm familiar, I guess, with those firms. So I think we have a hard choice to make. The review period is ongoing. I think we are meeting, sorry, I can't remember if it's tomorrow or Thursday, to go over our rankings of those submissions, and then after that, we will decide if we want to do interviews and then make a recommendation to the board in the next couple of weeks. So I think it's been a thorough and good process, and just wanted to update the board on where that's at.
Is the procurement policy like 3 applications that you must have 3, or?
It's not. When you do an RFP, you're allowed to, you're not allowed, you're putting it out to anybody, and it's open for a certain period of time. So if you get 1,
Okay.
then you can accept the 1. If you get 15, then you have to sort through the 15. So, while, it's great to have multiple options, bidding on contract work out here on the coast is difficult, and this is a specific service that I think is kind of refined. So I'm happy that we got the ones that we got, to be honest. The other RFPs that we've put out in the district history over the past few years, we usually struggle to get any responses. So I think this is a good thing.
Thank you. I look forward to Thursday. Board election. RE Al Hernandez, discussion and decision. What information have you got for us, Skylar?
Okay, so I outlined kind of the timeline and my interactions. This is a new one for me, and I believe for the district. We have had board members who moved from Seaside to Gearhart, and they had to resign because they were no longer in the district. But the way that this started was a normal, what I felt like was a normal application or a notice to file for a position on the board. The only reason why anything really transpired was because while I was getting my COVID vaccine, I ran into a volunteer at the site, and they shared with me that they believed that their candidate, who lived in Gearhart, next to them in Gearhart, was running for the board. And I asked them, are they sure? And they said yes, they were sure. They've lived there for a period of more than 1 year, and that they were sure it was him, it was his face and his name. So I wasn't sure what to do. I reached out to the county clerk and told them what I had heard, and they said that they were going to look into it, and that's where it left for a little while. And then after that, there was a flurry of email activity and phone calls back and forth between myself and the county clerk's office. They were very helpful and resourceful, and they informed me that at some period of time, they said from when the candidate filed, which was in February, until our phone conversation last week, that Mr. Hernandez changed his voter registration with the Oregon DMV to his Gearhart address. And typically in the past, the voter registration is what would provide the document, basically, that you are a district resident and that you're eligible to serve on the budget committee, or in this case, the district board. I did not interact with Mr. Hernandez after that point, but the county clerk's office did email him to say that he was no longer eligible. And unfortunately, Mr. Hernandez blamed the email from staff, which I think is unbecoming, because he had filed his paperwork with the county before that email interaction, and I believe that Mr. Hernandez is a smart person, and he knew full well the county or the district boundaries and how they were different from the Seaside School District boundaries based on previous interactions and conversations that I had with him. At this point, the county has informed us that it's too late for his name to be removed from the ballot. So he's on the ballot, and I believe ballots are to be mailed out in the next few days to district residents. If Mr. Hernandez wins, if he wins by recording the most number of votes, like any district candidate that files and wins by recording the most number of votes, the district is responsible for certifying the results of the election. And we've never been in a position where there's been contention before, and so it hasn't really been an issue previously where there was a contested election or where someone's residency was being questioned. So I think we're in an unusual position, and I'm coming to the board in full transparency, trying to help them and the district work together to figure out a solution to this, because while I don't know what will happen of the election, I think we need to be prepared for what could happen, and either the district, and I mean the staff, or the district elected officials, the board, would have to declare a candidate's eligibility if they won. And I think everyone can recognize the tenuous position that puts both staff in, if they were to do it, and district board. So to be honest, I am at a loss of what to do. I am bringing this to you to be transparent and clear with everything that has happened. So if there's questions, I'm happy to help. The county clerk's office has also been helpful, but they've essentially shared that this is our responsibility to certify the election results and the district candidate's residency.
I think they've specifically said it's your responsibility. I mean, from when I talked to them, I think their understanding is this, the executive director can make that decision. I don't think they never said the board needs to make that decision. So,
Sure.
I mean, I'm not saying it still puts you in a tenuous position, but I don't, from what they told me, the board does not need to vote on that.
So that's fine, and I agree with their decision for practicality, but I would like that permission designated by the governing body of the district, which is the board of directors.
And I have a question. Remember at the beginning with conflict of interest, I do not know if I have even a say, since that is the gentleman who is contesting position 1 with me.
Yeah, It would be my opinion, Sue, that you would need to recuse yourself, because I do think, because it's a race, that I think you were right, that you'd have to recuse yourself from any decision-making authority or any vote in the matter, in my opinion. I think that's smart.
I just think this is disappointing, to be honest. I mean, when you see the timeline, I find this extremely disappointing. Particularly if he's been told he's not eligible.
Yeah, just to be clear, when you're talking about a decision, Skylar, do you mean a decision to what? It seems like a fairly black and white issue. If somebody is not a resident of the district or is not a registered voter in the district, they're just ineligible, right? It's like, it doesn't sound like there's much gray area to it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that,
Yeah.
Celeste. The reason why I included the the article that was written by the Seaside Signal, the candidate, Mr. Hernandez, said that he said, quote, "I am eligible to be elected to a position on the SEPRD board. Anyone voting for me can be confident they are casting a valid vote."
But that seems to me that that would fall to elections oversight, which I believe is a state of Oregon jurisdiction issue. If somebody is purporting to be a legitimate candidate, knowing that they are not, that I think falls to a state elections official. So that's a different issue. So in other words, to take it away from somebody here, if somebody were to, that lived in Kansas, were to have submitted paperwork and put their name on the ballot to run, they're certainly not, but if they purport to be eligible to run, I would imagine that's a violation of election law in the state of Oregon, and that jurisdiction would fall to, if somebody were to file a complaint, would fall to elections officials. Now, whether or not that Kansas person were to be certified to be eligible to take a position on a board of directors would fall to the district to decide that piece. So there are two different issues. One is campaigning when you're not a candidate. That's one issue that has to do with election laws.
Sure.
The other issue is whether or not you're eligible as a candidate to be seated.
Sure. So I guess I completely agree with you, but what I'm saying is, right now, I don't think the district in the past has designated the authority for who makes that
I see.
that decision, if necessary. And again, I agree that it is kind of unfortunate that it is necessary. Who is making that decision? And it seems like, according to your conversation and from what I know about the county, it can fall on me or on the executive director or general manager, whoever it might be. But I would like that codified in policy by the board, not just for this instance, but for a future instance.
Well, I think we could make an internal policy, right? We could internally, but it's, I mean, ultimately what we're being told by the officials is it's still, so I guess we would be following what the officials are telling us, which is it's your decision. And I think Celeste is right. I think the piece about falsifying information on an application has to do with the state of Oregon. I mean, that was stated in the same article, so.
Yeah. Okay.
So can I make a comment? So my comment is, back in February, I shared with Skylar, a person from Cannon Beach was interested in running for the district. And because they are not in the district, they could not run. So I just wanted to add that it feels like there needs to be a standard that's followed.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think you all know that this is a topic that comes up very frequently in our interactions with the public because there's a lot of confusion about what the district boundaries technically are and questions about why and how did that happen and is this good or is it bad and all those types of things. So I think all district staff and probably elected officials have become quite experienced at sharing where the district boundaries are, and I think it's fairly public knowledge where we have it on our website. That's in every board document or every budget document. So I don't know if there's clarity that's needed, but and when the candidate filed, he use the address in Gerhart. He used a Seaside address, which clearly is within the district. So I didn't see any reason to question his residency.
In the past, or if you know, in the past, if one of us should move to Gerhart or Cannon Beach, or if you know of anybody who's been on the board who has done that, what is the usual course of action? Like, what is, from your perspective, kind of the ethical way to approach this?
Yeah, so actually this happened, 2, maybe 3 years ago. Alan Evans was the board chair, and he had a Seaside address. He then moved to Gerhart, bought a different home in Gerhart, and he informed me actually, on the day of sale, basically, that he had moved to Gerhart, and I said, well, that sucks. And he said, well, I'm still a property owner in Seaside. I still own property. And I said, well, where are you registered to vote? And he said, I'm registered in Gerhart. And I said, okay, well, then you need to resign. And he did. And it was a hard thing because Alan, enjoyed serving on the board and was mid-term. But that's the only experience that I've had with a situation like that. I have had a lot of people want to run for the board or serve on the budget committee that don't live in the district, and I've had to share with them that they're unable to do that.
It seems like a very similar situation that you made they following the same path,
Well, and it seems clear, just because of how the policy seems to be written, that whether or not it's your permanent address or what you consider your permanent address, that's not the standard. The standard is actually where you're registered to vote. So it's very sort of clear cut. It is what it is. So as far as establishing a policy,
All right, from my perspective, if we're going to have an internal policy, those kind of examples should just be documented.
Yeah, I
So,
think so too.
You could maybe have like a policy statement with some different scenarios to kind of guide staff if this should happen in the future. But it sounds like there's already examples and how those were handled. So those should also guide how we or whoever handles this. And I don't know I'm assuming you could work on that, like a draft.
Yeah, maybe that's the direction that we could go tonight, is the board could ask staff to work on how they might handle this situation based on previous experiences and on the correspondence we've received about this issue, if it is to come up, the situation.
Yeah. I think preparing a draft policy, and I'd also be interested in if we can have any consultation from SDAO or the elections office, whether or not existing districts have policies in place. I think looking at what other districts do in a situation like this might be helpful.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, those are tough questions. I think SDAO legal would probably have some answers, but in my mind, if you're not an eligible candidate, and continuing to campaign would be voter fraud, campaign election fraud, and something would have to be done about it. Any more discussion on Mr. Hernandez? Let's move on to the executive director report, please.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'm going to, breeze through a few of these items that are listed. I have provided a COVID update at all of our monthly meetings, hoping that, but for now it isn't. We're still continuing our operations and programs as before. As you all know, our county is in a little bit longer at least. Slate of children enrolled to learn to swim or continue advancing their swim skills. As far as the SRC from the Oregon Health Authority. We are permitted to have contact sports return, so we are planning and working with the Pacific Basketball League, or PBL, to host a basketball tournament starting in a couple of weeks in May, with a lot of modifications and smaller attendees in the gym, but should be terrific to have that activity back. And so I think that's going really well. If it's okay with the board, I might save the public interaction report for a time when we have a few more minutes. If that's all right, maybe move it to our next meeting or to a workshop. Moving on to item D, we were the recipients of a summer camp grant from the state of Oregon. We actually just received the funds today, so this has been an application process that we started a few weeks ago, but we are going to receive $62,500. And that's to provide summer camp. The state is trying to fill a need with agencies, nonprofits, and government agencies to provide summer camp for children at a time when, life is difficult for a lot of the children throughout our state and throughout the world. So I think that's really we are able to use the funds for multiple purposes. So we have some ideas to use that, including staffing, some improvements that the operations of the summer camp at the SRC, maybe some program enhancement, apparatus things to make the camp environment a little more fun and welcoming. Other items, so I'll report back to the board what we decide to use those funds for, but looking forward to a wonderful summer camp year where we're able to serve our community. Youth program coordinator position, in-person interviews, and that around end of May or early June. Working with the consultant, 100. Understanding the process more stage of right now, we're gathering a sizable amount of data and learning how to put that into the system. After that, we'll work with including the board to strategize and prioritize we receive. And then lastly, item G, I just wanted to report on some great special events that happened lately. We had our spring playground at the beginning of the month, Saturday the 3rd, I believe, and it went really well. It was modified. I know we had a couple of great volunteers from the board. We had 200 people register, and then 200 people show up on site day of registration. So 400 participants, which is a lot less than normal. We were really limiting it to a certain age group and kind of providing different waves of egg hunting, if you will. We also had great support from a couple of businesses in our community that sponsored us, so grateful to those folks. Let's see here, 2 Saturdays ago, I believe, was the day of Art in the Park event, so yeah, maybe the 17th, that sounds right. We had about 40 volunteers show up at the Railroad Garden in Seaside alongside the highway and spread a lot of art, ADA access to a garden bed. It was really warm. Weather to be outside. For Levi. Person asked about attendees. So the room will be set up similar to this. I don't think we'll be facing towards the audience, but we will allow for some in-person attendees, but it will be limited and be on a first-come, first-serve basis. Questions can be submitted beforehand by emailing RJ Marks or by emailing the email address info@sunsetempire.com, and we're going to stream the forum on our YouTube page.
Yeah, I was going to say, since we're high risk, can we even have this amount of people?
We can, yeah, we
Okay.
can have,
25%?
yeah, we can have, I can't remember what the exact number is, but we're safe right now, and we'll be safe on Thursday. We'll make
Okay.
sure that we spread folks out in the best way and have a safely held in-person event. A week or two from now, we have our Prom 100K Centennial Run and Walk. I know I've spoken a little bit about that. It's not 100K just for yourself, so you form a team and walk or run the prom all night, starting at 8 p.m. Should be a lot of fun. I know a number of district staff and other community folks are participating, so I think that will be wonderful. And then our next scheduled regular board meeting and budget committee meeting will be Tuesday, May 25th. And it sounds like we may have a workshop in between now and then, so maybe we can clarify those dates after the meeting or later, and we can get the meeting notice published. And
Yeah, Skylar, I noticed there was something for the RFP on May 11th.
correct.
Do we need to do a workshop that day, for example?
Their meeting, because to take official board action, we need to be meeting in a regular meeting and not a workshop. So I think we were tentatively planning on point that week, just
Maybe, could you do a workshop, especially if we only have one, and
yeah,
do it before, so we're not,
yeah, we can. That's a common time, do a meeting right after, or vice versa.
Yeah.
so much going on, it might be
Yeah.
better one day.
Okay, so maybe plan on that May 11th.
I don't know what day that is, but,
I think that's a Tuesday.
okay.
All right, that's it for me, Mr. Vice
Skylar,
Chair. Thank you.
Can
Any
I-
further questions?
Yeah, I
for
just
Skylar?
I'm excited to hear about the summer grant and, for 62,500. I was just curious about who wrote that grant and whether or not this is a grant we've previously received.
Yeah, the grant has never been available to us, so it's new this year, and I don't.
Okay. Fantastic.
Awesome.
It's great to hear.
Yep.
Thank you then. Erica, we need to move into executive session. Would you please read the motion for us to go into executive session?
Board of Directors will go to executive session for purpose of performance review for Executive Director pursuant to ORS 192.660. How does that go again? The 1 and the I.
Is there a second?
Aye, but you need.
One aye.
You need a motion.
Oh, I motion,
There you go.
the Board of Directors will go to executive session for purpose of performance review of Executive Director pursuant to ORS 192.6601I.
Okay. Is there a second?
Sue had a second.
I second.
Okay, I did not hear that. Thank you, Sue. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
We are now in executive session. We will give the public some time to leave the room, please. I'm not sure when we'll reconvene. It might be, I don't know, is there an estimated time? Maybe think the Day of Caring was outstanding, and I think Levi and people have been gone over and above working over there. We appreciate the improvements. The fellow gardeners.
Are you handing it off?
I'm done.
But you have to hand it to somebody else. Who's next?
Oh, Sue, do you have comments, please? Yeah, I'm the chair, right? Do you have some board comment?
You know, one of the things that in my time away for this last 10 days, that impressed me so much was I was talking to a lady I know in Kentucky, and I've known her for 20 years. Her son is running for a park and rec position in Atlanta, Georgia, and the vitriol that he's experienced, it just is interesting to me that that is something that surprised me that might be out there in more communities than what we have. So I think I don't know what to say about it. I was disappointed. Well, I wasn't disappointed. I was sad that that was the case. But I basically still appreciate so much that this community has to offer, and the fact that despite what has happened to our community regarding COVID status, that basically we continue to have a pool that operates. We continue to have staff that are diligent and keeping us safe, and I appreciate the leadership that Skylar has offered for them. And I'm grateful that that in the political climate, there's still an option to find the truth. You just have to search.
Thank you. Erica?
I just have a couple things. I think in reference to some of the public comment, I think the first thing is that engineers don't process reports on asbestos, so unfortunately that request keeps coming up and it's just not actually rational. I think another thing that's frustrating to me is, especially because I went to school at Broadway Middle School, is that it feels like there's a group of people who only care about the children now, to be honest, because I basically lived in that building for most of my life, literally, and nobody seemed to care about me when I was living there. So that's frustrating. The other thing is that I just want to remind the public that, or remind the people here who are giving public comment that there's just kind of one opinion, and that doesn't mean that it's fact. I think that there's a whole bunch of people in this community who really value the Sunset Recreation Center and that property, and who want to see it go to the next level. So I think as a community, we just have to remember that people have opinions, and just because you have one opinion doesn't mean your next door neighbor or the mom dropping off kids at childcare doesn't have another opinion. And then the last thing is that, as a board, we're not here to micromanage Skylar and the rest of the staff. We're here to share, advice when we can. We're here to support. We're here to provide governance, but we're not here to micromanage staff. And I think that if people don't start to understand that, they're going to literally kill the district. Nobody's going to want to work. Nobody is going to want to work for a board who does that, and nobody is going to want to use those facilities.
Celeste, I'll let you talk.
So I would like to say goodbye to Miss Vicky. She will be missed. My kids attended preschool with Miss Vicky growing up, and later, more recently, Miss Vicky actually was a volunteer at Foster Club, the agency where I serve as executive director, where she spent her time, even though she was not in the best of health, she spent her time mentoring young people from foster care. And I just want to say how big of an impact she had on so many kids, so many generations of kids, and she will be missed. She definitely lived a life impacting others, and I admire that. Regarding some of the public comment that we had today, I think one of the pieces that I'd like to put on the record is that this piece about the building being unsafe, frankly, is a bit nonsensical, and I'm perplexed at why people are chasing that narrative. I was surprised recently. I offered one of the people that provided public comment and one of the people that are running for a position for the board. In hearing their comment about the condition of the building, I asked if they had been in the building and offered them a personal tour. And I was surprised that that person had never been in the building before, yet had been so firm about the condition of the building. I think the public deserves to know that a good portion of that building was built in 1994 after both lead paint and asbestos had been abolished in the state of Oregon. And that the rest of the building has been maintained. And unless you disturb those substances on a job site, really the safety concerns are minimal. And I think there's been so much testing. We did our due diligence in purchasing the building. We know where the problem spots are, and we can mitigate against any risk to the public or district members. And frankly, most of the activities are taking place in the part of the building that was built in 1994. And that's a newer building than most of Seaside. And so if we have concerns, I think there are concerns about other buildings in Seaside beyond just the Broadway property. I also would like to just comment regarding the misinformation that's being spread about the financing and the potential uses of the property. We did our due diligence there. We sought counsel from the expert that managed our flex lease application for us, and I feel confident that we've done our due diligence regarding the allowable uses for the property under the flex lease. Would also like to thank the staff for all of the continued great work, particularly in the uncertainty of COVID. I know we're heading back into high risk, an unknown territory, and just want to thank the staff for keeping with it and securing something like the summer grant for our summer camp grant. I think that's really great news for the district and just means that we're going to be able to provide opportunity for kids who've been really struggling during this pandemic.
Thank you, Celeste.
And I think, Catherine?
Oh, hi, Catherine.
Thank you, Celeste. I'm going to keep mine very short because we're running behind. So I'm just going to say thank you to everyone for stepping up tonight in my absence. I appreciate your accommodations, and I appreciate everybody on the board. And that's it.
Thank you, Catherine. With that, I just want to add one more thing about Miss Vicky. I think it deserves some generosity. Miss Vicky, when we had to close down the child care program, we were losing $100,000 a year to Park District. And Miss Vicky, we didn't know where we were going to put the child care. The parents were concerned, and they formed a volunteer group. But Miss Vicky opened her own home, and actually the children were at her home for child care for a period of time before they moved into the Masonic Lodge. With that, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you. We will convene the Budget Committee as soon as we can.
Catherine, we're going to take a quick bio break.
Okay.
Thank you. Hey, Celeste, do you want to just call me?
I might have to shift closer to you to see our screen here eventually. What was that?
Yeah.
Was that your? What that was?
that's the charger for the Surface Pro. Yep.
Mercy.
Are you emailing Catherine? Oh, I was just going to call her. Do you want to try that? Why don't we just call this work?
Okay. If that works out for you.
Yeah.
What it was, these two machines did an update today. And it did something with the driver to the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Adapter. So I rolled that back, but.
Why don't we just do this slow?
Okay.
Oh, as long as I have some battery.
All right.
All right.
Can I charge it?
Did you get information by email, Catherine, or do you need me to ask her? Oh, Marcus is going to send it to you. Okay. I hope you all online will be able to do it. Sorry.
Thank you, Marcus.
You're welcome.
All right. All right. You ready, Sue?
I'm just trying to wash my hands, nothing is in.
What did she say?
She's washing her hands.
Indeed.
Oh, thank you.
People have to share some microphones, huh? We don't have an agenda, do we? Here we go.
Review of local budgeting, and we're going to go over information for us as well as us as an district staff, just make sure that we're following what the procedures are supposed to be, but also for you all as public officials. We'll elect a chairperson and a secretary at a minimum. You can also select a vice chair, but it is not required. We'll receive the budget message, and that'll be mostly through a presentation format. That'll include accomplishments of the past year, budget considerations for the upcoming year. We will provide an opportunity for public comment tonight, and then confirm our next meeting date, which is June 25th at 7 p.m. So maybe if we could just do introductions really quickly, and we'll proceed next. So do you want to start?
Microphone on.
Erica Marshall Hamer, lived here my whole life, and been on the board since August now.
Thank you.
So me next.
Amber?
My name's Amber Clyde. I've lived in the district for 32 years, I think, if I did my math right. And yeah, I'm just here for the kids to support the program.
I'm Tyson McDonald. Lived here since 82, so first event that we did, I think, was the madhouse at the pool in that event, and Larry Lehman got chopped up by my two twins. So there you go. That was a long time ago. Thank you.
Norm Brown, lived in Seaside for 7 years. I'm new to the budget committee. Moved up in 2014 from California, and glad to be in Oregon.
I'm Robert Gazewood. You can call me Bob if you'd like. I've been in the county since 1980. Surf Pines, a resident since 1982. And I worked in various cities and counties for about 30 years.
Hi, I'm Patrick Duacek, apparently the new guy, only been here since 2013. Second year on the budget committee for Sunset Empire, first year on the budget committee for the 4-H and Extension group. That's it.
Les Bodner, also grew up in Seaside and then returned back to Seaside in 2003. I've been on the board of directors since August and previously was on the budget committee. And I'll turn it to Catherine.
Catherine Parker, I apologize for not being there in person, but I have a cough, not COVID, just a cold. But I have been here since 2004 off and on, and I've been serving on the board of directors since 2019.
Thank you. I'm Michael Hinton. I'm vice president of the board, and I've been serving at least 19 years, apparently. Oh.
Again, we appreciate you volunteering and hope that you understand how vital you are to this process in our district. I also want to recognize that we have Marcus Runkle, our finance and administration manager, who helped prepare the budget. Thanks for being here, Marcus. And Darren, our director of operations, who's providing all the logistical support and IT needs that we could ever need in one day. So thanks, Darren. We wanted to review this local budgeting law. This is taken from the Department of Oregon Department of Revenue Handbook briefly. I provided a full copy for you just because I feel like it's really important. There's also a PDF. Sorry, Mike.
Do we need to, I think we need to elect the chairperson.
Yeah, I think
and a vice chair.
the way that we're going to do it is do that right after this part of the meeting, if that's okay. So this isn't actually the official business, this is just kind of the information part of the meeting from staff. But some basic information, the Budget Committee is to review, discuss, make additions, deletions, and approve the proposed budget. Budget Committee also is responsible for setting the tax rate, which we'll go over in a little bit, but it's 92 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. The process is a joint effort between the public and the appointed or elected officials on the Budget Committee. So we will provide opportunities for public comment. We're required to provide at least 2, and public comment is encouraged. The Budget Committee consists of equal numbers of board and citizens at large. That's why there's 5 on the board of directors and 5 that are citizens at large. Your role is not to directly establish or eliminate programs or services. You do not approve new personnel, employee contracts, or salary schedules. The budget discussions must be held at public meetings, so that's something that you should be aware of as you get started here on your public official status for this committee. As far as budget meetings, the Budget Committee will select a chair and other officers. We'll do that here shortly. Chair and secretary are required, vice chair is optional. You may meet as many times as needed to revise and approve the budget. In my 6 years with the district, we have always met twice, but if the Budget Committee wanted to meet more, that would be up to you to decide. After the Budget Committee approves the budget and the tax levy rate is established, the committee's work is then finished and the budget gets passed on to the Board of Directors. The board meets to discuss and adopt the budget, and the final authority for doing so rests with them. After that, the district staff work to put the budget into practice and comply with regulations. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to the group where they will select a chair first and a secretary, and then a vice chair is optional. Typically, the way that this is done is by someone making a nomination and then a second, and then if there's other nominations, those would happen at that point. Once the chair is selected, I will stop talking unless asked. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Skylar.
I'd like to nominate someone to start us off. Amber Clyde, I'd like to nominate for the chair position.
Do I need a second?
Yeah, so what you would do is there would be a second, and then there would be an opportunity for discussion, other nominations, and then, or the Budget Committee members would vote on this action.
I would second.
And your motion second. Is there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Norm Brown for the secretary position.
Or vice chair?
For Norm. Can't escape it.
I'll second it.
I would like to ask if anyone would like to nominate themselves to be chair or vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Norman Brown for chair.
I'll second that.
Okay. Seems as if you have 2 nominations for chair and 1 for secretary. So I think it would be appropriate for the committee to decide which nomination for chair that you're going to put forward before you have a vote, or you could vote, I guess, on that, but that might...
I move that we vote for chair and the person receiving the second number of vote is vice chair.
That sounds reasonable.
I'll second that.
Should we have a roll call vote? Sue Coddington?
Sure that everyone who wants to run for chair has had a chance to promote themselves? Or is it closed to, I mean, do we have Amber and, Norman? Thank you. I mean, I'd just like to make sure that everyone has an opportunity who would like to potentially chair. before we close it.
Are there any more nominations? I will-
Nominations.
I'll second that.
I didn't hear that motion.
I move that the nominations be closed for the
Yes.
chair.
So all those in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
Aye.
So we'll have a roll call vote. I guess it's been put that we vote for president, and whoever receives the second largest votes for it will become vice president.
I mean, is there any discussion that needs to happen before you vote? I mean, I guess I'm curious, I mean, from my perspective, why I had nominated Amber's, because she's,
Okay, I'll ask the first question.
what?
You were the one that, one of the votes.
Yeah, so I've
Yes, my name's Amber.
What's your local experience
Running a meeting?
running?
Well, I've been the PTO president at the grade school for 3 years, so I've run a meeting with Robert's Rules for 3 years. That's basically my experience.
What's your experience with the local budget law?
I can't understand you.
You said, what's your experience with local budget law?
Just being on this budget committee, I've done this is my 4th and final year. I think I'm done with, my terms are up, right?
Technically, yes, but you could run again or serve on the budget committee moving forward.
I was going to say is that Amber's been the longest serving member of the budget committee. That's why I had nominated her.
So, Norman, then, the questions I posed, what's your experience?
Well, I was a staffing manager for 30 years, and so had numerous weekly staff meetings and presentation meetings, meetings with other managers. And as far as budget law or budget process, I've been exposed a little bit to it from 2 years I've been on the Clatsop County Budget Committee. And just the accounting or finance aspects of it in terms of reviewing budgets and proposing my own budgets throughout my working career.
Yeah, I have one last question. With both of you answered.
Would you please use the microphone, Mr. Gazewood?
Oh, I'm sorry. So if I was looking at certain things in the budget, and I wanted clarification for that, and I asked for a special report, can that be denied if I ask for a special report relating to the budget? Either one of you answered.
Well, I would say a special report, I'm assuming if it deals with the budget, it's a finance question, we would defer to the person in charge of finance and say, can you create that report, provide that report? I don't think there would be any reason for it to be denied unless that information is not available or it was such a over-the-top complex report that it was just not feasible.
Right.
I'll take just a second to say that in coming here and looking at the chair, and I've gone through this process before with the Clatsop County, that I saw it that the experience on the board was the most valuable asset to start with. Someone that had gone through the process and knew the way it went, questions that were asked, and the process. And so not that I'm not taking my name out of contention, but I will say that coming here tonight, I was looking for selecting someone that had that experience and would be able to guide us. I'll also point out that if you select Amber, that means I'm vice chair and I can't be secretary, just in case.
Well, it's easy enough, yeah, we understand that. Okay, Amber, what's your thoughts on that matter?
I think I would say the same thing as Norman. If someone came to me for a special report about the budget, I would refer to the budget that we have. We wouldn't be making a private discussion about it, and I would bring it to Marcus and Skylar and ask them what they thought about having a special report made. It doesn't seem like it would be necessary in this case, though.
Is there statutory authorization regarding a request for reports?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, for your information.
I don't know. I've never run into that issue
Okay,
before.
for your information, there it is a statute. State law local budget law statute requires that if a request is made for information regarding the budget, it has to be provided. It's a statutory requirement on that. Okay, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Can I ask for clarification? I just didn't hear the motion. Was the motion that first in the voting that the person in first position is the chair position and the second is secretary? Or is it that the first person, the person in first is the chair and the second is vice chair? Because the vice chair is an optional, we do not have to have a vice chair position for this budget committee.
The motion was that the person receiving the largest number of votes would be chair, and the person receiving the second number of votes would be vice chair.
Vice chair. So we would still need to select a secretary. Okay.
There was a nomination for that. One.
Only one nomination for secretary, so right now.
The secretary really has no actual role in recording anything.
Okay. And so can I propose a friendly amendment to the motion on the floor that we combine the secretary vice chair position? So the person that falls to second fills both the secretary and vice chair roles.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, what was?
She amended the motion that the person receiving the second number of votes, there would be a combined position of vice chair and secretary.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded that we combine the activity by a person that pulls the second level of votes would become the secretary, vice chair. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on that? Otherwise, let's vote on it. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right.
Okay, very good. So, should we have a roll call vote for clarity?
Sure.
Sue, who do you vote for chair?
Well, I still am curious why Mr. Gazewood is not in a higher position, but I would vote for Amber, as was suggested by Mr. Brown.
I didn't hear that.
So, we have one vote for Amber. Erica?
Voting for Amber.
Amber?
Yes.
It's okay to vote.
I'm voting for Amber.
I'll vote for Norman.
Amber.
Mr. Gazewood?
Norman.
Norman?
I'll vote for Norman.
I'll vote for Amber.
And I'll vote for Norman. But that's only 3 votes for Norman.
Oh, Catherine, how would you like to vote?
I'll vote for Norman.
And we have a tied We have a tied vote.
No, I'm not voting.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, we've got 10
Norman, do you want to
even.
change your vote? Would you like to change your vote, Norman?
Mike, I believe in the case of a tiebreaker, you as the board chair currently are allowed to cast the tie-breaking vote. Am I wrong, Skylar?
That would be normal procedure if we were in a board meeting, but since this is a separate governing body, I'm not sure if that's the procedure. If that's what you all want to decide.
Point of order. The only people that are allowed to vote on budget committee meetings are the 5 directors and 5 appointed members. No one else is entitled to a vote.
Excuse me, what did
No, I
Mr.
was
Gatewood
saying, would
say?
you like to change yours and vote for yourself?
Please use the microphone.
Oh. You want to talk?
I mean, sure, just to
Turn it
move it
off.
along, I will do that. I mean, we need to get going, so. Go for it. Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal who runs the meeting.
So what are you changing your votes?
I said I would change and vote for
Okay.
myself just so that we can move the meeting along.
Very good.
You changed your vote to Norman?
No, to Amber.
I voted
Oh.
originally
Who
for
changed
Norman.
whose vote?
I changed
I
the
cannot
vote
hear
for
you unless you
myself
use the
so we can get
microphone.
started.
Okay. All right. First decision made.
Well, it's both decisions, right? Because now Norman is vice.
Yeah, Norman's
Okay.
the right-hand man now.
Yeah.
So Amber's
Seems like a
chair.
good team.
Norman is secretary/vice chair.
You passed the gavel?
Okay, so now can we call the meeting to order at 7:50?
I'm ready with our Budget Committee Chairperson Clyde.
Yes, I believe I just called the meeting to order. We can go ahead and start with our budget message.
That was exciting. So a little bit of information about the district. I know most of you know about this just from being involved or serving on this committee or our board before. The district was formed 52 years ago. Our main programs are divided into 3 areas: aquatics, youth programs, and recreation. Our facilities include the Sunset Pool, the newly acquired Sunset Recreation Center, Fitness Center, the Youth Center, the Adoption Community Center, where we are at currently, Mary Boyd Playhouse, and Broadway Theater. Currently, or by the time of adoption of this budget, we'll have 9 full-time staff and approximately 55 part-time staff. Here's an overview of some of the other districts' current tax rate. I provided this information to you, and I recognize that it's very hard to see. I'm sorry for that. I can get this to you in a different format later, but you'll see our tax rate is 92 cents per thousand. There's a number of other park and recreation district taxes, or park and recreation districts throughout the state, and all have varied tax rates. Some are similar to ours, some are more, and some are less. It depends on the area, what the tax rate is established as. A lot of other districts, some have other sources of funding, such as system development charges, and some are a little bit smaller in budget and probably a little more meager in what they're able to offer the community. This is the organizational chart currently. So you see on top is the elected board of directors. Then you have the executive director position. The 3 yellow shaded orange positions are director of programs, director of operations, and director of facilities and maintenance. And then to the my screens left, you have the manager of finance and admin services. Our human resources is going to be contracted out to a consultant, and we're working through that process now. You see all of the other different programs and services that we offer underneath those 3 directors and manager of finance and admin services. Here's our financial history just provided for you in chart form because I like visual things, but you'll see our budget this year is a little bit higher than it was last year, and similar, and you can see we've been able to experience a pretty steady increase over the past 10 years or so, and that is mostly due to assessed value increasing in our district, within our district boundaries. Our revenue generates from the following sources. So we have property taxes, the timber tax, donations, program fees, and facility rentals. For a breakdown of that, there is another chart, and you can see by and large the bulk of our revenue is derived from property taxes, which is that significant chunk, and provides a little more than $1.8 million into our budget. Other sources of revenue include the timber tax, which we receive periodically in different amounts from Clatsop County. We also receive donations, bequests or support from our foundation, and then bank interest. For our expenses, our total expenditures this year are expected to be $2,677,576. Our expenses are divided into the following budget. We have administration, aquatics, community center, recreation, special events, youth center, and new this year is the maintenance expense budget. And here's the breakdown. It's fairly well broken out, I think, with aquatics, administration, and youth center getting the bulk of the expenses, and then maintenance being right after that. Other expenditures include fund transfers, and we like to have money in our contingency fund. Some other expenses that I want to highlight are our capital improvement fund that will receive $120,000 in this proposed budget. We also transfer $16,406 to the Broadway Field Fund, and you'll see a sizable amount transferred to the Sunset Recreation Center Fund. We can explain more about that when we get to it. We also budget money each year for a settlement that has really nothing to do with the district, but has to do with Wanna Mill laying claim to extra money that the county passed out that they shouldn't have. So we budget to have to pay out about $6,500 every year for that. How many years are left on that? Well, that's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head, I don't know how long that suit is active for. That's a great question.
I have looked it up previously, and I honestly can't remember. I know it's towards the end. I know it's close to the end. Yeah.
So we wanted to talk a little bit, and as you are working through this budget, you'll see a budget message which will have a lot of this. I just try to make this presentation a little bit more interactive and informative to help, because it is 8 o'clock and all of you have probably been up for at least 12 hours. Sue's been up for a long time. So we have 2 new directors that are on the budget committee. They were appointed in August 2020. Prior to that, we had a new board chairperson who was selected in July. That's Catherine, who's on the phone tonight. We had a vacancy process for 2 of the 5 positions during the fiscal year. The board was able to participate at the Special Districts Conference, which was held virtually, and then other training opportunities. They also provide volunteer service, support and involvement. By my count, they've engaged with policy on at least 29 decisions. Man, that is really hard to see, and I apologize, but it's all there, and I will send this out in a better format for you. As far as personnel, as the paid staff in the district, some of the highlights from last year, we had the addition of 3 coordinator positions that were all budgeted for or replacing previous staff. So a maintenance coordinator, an aquatic coordinator, and a youth program coordinator. The last 2 positions we are in the hiring process for the fiscal year. We also hired a special events and marketing manager that actually took place right before this current budget that we're in, but I wanted to highlight it because we weren't able to really share much about that position or their duties previously. We also created 3 new positions: the Director of Operations, the Director of Programs, and the Director of Facilities and Maintenance, and filled those positions with really qualified internal staff. Some of the other highlights in this area of the district, well, we learned how to do aquatics in a pandemic. That was a really challenging situation over the past fiscal year to adapt to the guidance, sometimes guidance that was hard to understand or hard to obtain, and also changed rapidly. But I'm really grateful for the hard work of our board and the staff to provide a great service during this time. Our youth program team stepped up in a really big way. So there was a significant need in our community over the past year to provide a different kind of programming to the youth of our community as the pandemic was affecting so many in different ways. And our youth programs team found themselves to be adaptable and was able to change gears and provide great service in providing infant care, kind of a renovated or a revised summer camp, and then continuing to provide services at this point. Fitness and recreation had to adapt to new guidance and hard to understand guidance again, and that's been a challenge. We haven't been able to offer some of those services like we had in the same way, but we're moving forward and hopeful for a better year. We had senior meal site program, about 18% more meals served over the course of the last year, partly because the meal site was able to transition to a drive-up cafe and utilizing the Meals on Wheels program. So we served more than around 21,000 meals out to the community last year. Probably the biggest highlight for the year was the acquisition of the Broadway Middle School property, and that finalized on January 15th. We have renamed the building temporarily, the Sunset Recreation Center, away from the old Broadway Middle School moniker. But that acquisition obviously changed our budget significantly and changed how we are preparing this budget, as well as changed district operations. And what we're hopeful for is really impact our community in a positive way by providing a great space that we have to recreate and share. I think in this last year we received more district or foundation grant support. That was partly due because we took a very active and engaged role in applying for those opportunities, but also because there was more opportunities available. Lots of nonprofits released funds to help services like ours during the pandemic, as well as there was money available to us from the State of Oregon Coronavirus Relief Fund and FEMA because of the services that we were providing. I want to talk a little bit about just budget overview and information. The total assessed valuation, so that's the total assessed property valuation of all of the properties in the district is a little, I'm not going to say that number, but I believe that's a little under $2 trillion, which is an increase from last year of 2.4%. So for those of you that follow the housing market or know of the challenges in the housing market here, you can recognize that housing is more expensive at this point than it probably ever has been before. And because of that, assessed value of the property goes up as well. The real market value is not the same as the assessed value, but they typically rise kind of in conjunction together. The permanent tax rate for the district is 92 cents per thousand, and it generates $1.8 million plus a little extra in taxes for SEPRD. That's a 3.4% increase from the previous year. We have a collection rate that we budget for at 93%, so not everybody pays their property taxes, not everybody pays their property taxes on time. And so we budget to receive a little less than $1.7 million for the next year. We work with the county. They have a lot of information to let us know exactly what they predict we'll be receiving, but sometimes those numbers are off, and it's due to no fault of their own or us. This year, I know we got more tax revenue than we were expecting, probably because of the value of the home market situation here. We are also projecting to receive $1.25 million from program fees, carryover, timber tax, donations, and other sources of revenue. For the entire budget, the district generates approximately 22% through user fees. So going through kind of some overview of what preparing this budget was like. It's been challenging. Congress has devoted a lot of work over the past few months to different budget processes, but one of the things that was unique about this one was that we passed a supplemental budget in March, and that required a lot of time. That wasn't really one budget supplemental, that was really redoing the entire district's budget. And that's pretty unheard of for our district, our special district. While there are larger agencies that do that, it is new for us. There's also been a lot of challenges in budgeting what the pandemic is going to be like for our district next year. What revenue will we be able to tap into? What programs will return or maybe be revised that are different or similar than what we used to offer? And overall, how it will affect us. If you were on this budget committee last year, you will remember that we expected to only reduce our revenue stream by about 25% during Q1 and Q2 of the last fiscal year. And obviously the pandemic affected us for much longer, and it's ongoing, and our revenue was diminished way more than that amount. We also have the challenge of budgeting around the Sunset Recreation Center. So there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think there's some revenue that is potentially obtainable for the district there, but there's also a period of deliberation that we're experiencing right now where we're trying to assess the best use for the district, working with some experts and consultants in that field. And so what you'll see in the budget is our best expectations of where we will be at, but they don't account for all of the potential revenue or potential projects at the SRC if we were able to do whatever we wanted and have whatever we wanted there. There are no significant shutdown projects. In fact, at this point for the next year, we're not even planning on shutting the pool down. We've had to do that in the past, investing into the Sunset Pool infrastructure with sizable capital improvements, but because we've been shut down for a fair amount of this fiscal year, we really are trying to do our best to not have to do that this year, and the pool is running really well right now, and we hope to continue that all through the year. And like I said, I think there's a high likelihood that we'll have a decrease in our own ability to generate revenue. We're doing our best to predict what that will look like, but it's really hard to know what next week will look like in Clatsop County, and it's especially hard to know what August or November or next March is going to look like in our county based on the virus and if there will be restrictions in place and what we'll be able to offer. So the first section of your budget message is a cross-departmental message, and that's kind of just an opportunity to share things that are not specific to one budget, but kind of across the board. So again, as we compare the budget, we are doing our best to exercise caution given the uncertainty of the situation. Last year, we made the decision, the fiscal responsibility in mind to not implement a cost of living adjustment for our staff. And we also did not award any merit increases for staff. This year, in the budget that we're proposing, we're authorizing a 2% cost of living adjustment for all staff and merit increases for deserving staff. And we have internal processes for that. That's not necessarily for you to decide, but I do want to be clear in that inclusion in the budget. Also want to share a little bit, and those of you that work in business or have businesses of your own, you know that there's a rising cost of payroll and labor. It's not unique necessarily to our area, but it's magnified in our area because of lack of housing and because it's harder to find housing and cost of living is a little bit higher here than it is in other parts of the state. You'll see a little information about minimum wage, which is going to go up in a couple of months to $12.75. That is a $3.50 increase than where it was 5 years ago. And then at the end of next fiscal year, on July 1, 2022, it will go up to $13.50. And it's possible that it will sit there for a little while, but it's also possible that it will continue to rise depending on legislation that goes through at the state. We have a couple of positions that start around minimum wage, but most of our employees earn more than minimum wage. But what we do, keep this in mind because as minimum wage rises, obviously our employees kind of have to rise with it, those employees that are sort of in entry-level positions. In the admin department, I talked about the, if you want to look either in your budget or continue in your budget message, you can, but this is going to kind of highlight some of what I feel like and Marcus feels like are the important things to share. And Marcus, feel free to jump in. You'll see what we've done is split up some of these director positions into different budgets. Whereas a lot of times before, the IT and marketing manager budget was held maybe with one specific budget. Now we tried to split that up to reflect accurately where that person, Mr. Darren Gooch, is going to be actually spending their job time and their responsibilities. So you'll see that a portion of their salary in different department lines broken out. We also added under the admin department a committee expense for the 3 committees that our district utilizes. These are employee internal committees, and so we have a Start Well, which is essentially employee engagement. risk management, and then equity, diversity and inclusion. And I believe the budgeted line is $1,500 for each committee, so a total of $4,500. $2,500 each. Thanks, Marcus. That's to provide funding for training, workshops that need to be conducted, as well as getting the engagement of staff. It's really difficult not to motivate the full-time staff, but to motivate part-time staff more to participate in these opportunities. So we're trying to find ways to incentivize, sometimes even something as simple as placement for people to participate in these activities. You'll see a 1.3 decrease in personnel expense and a 13.9 decrease in total expense for the admin department from year over year from last year. Maintenance budget is new this year. We actually passed it in the supplemental budget process, but this. Oh.
So when you are looking at the actual budget on the last one, so when he's talking about the split personnel, you will see. So for instance, Director of Operations is 0.85 full-time equivalent written on there. So that's how we budget it across, and you'll see as it's going across how much of that is tied to.
The chart you're showing up there appears to be number 14. Yeah, will we be getting the updated chart?
Sure. Sorry,
And
what's different?
I think
Slide
there were
14?
some others that are updated.
Can I see? Oh my gosh. So I realized I printed last year's message.
I noticed some other charts were needed to be.
What a smart move I made. I'm really sorry.
What you're presenting too.
Yeah, let me plan on sharing this with you as soon as the meeting is over, okay? Oh, thanks, Darren. Again, thank you. So, where did we go here? We were done with that. So maintenance budget is new this year. It includes the repair and maintenance for each of the budgets to help us account for staff time and expenses better. What we were finding, because the maintenance budget was housed within the aquatics budget, it was really hard to specifically track where our maintenance department was actually investing their time and how much we were investing into different maintenance areas of the district. So Marcus had the great idea to pull out maintenance, create its own budget. Obviously, it's not going to include any revenue because maintenance doesn't make money for the district, but does provide that really essential service. So in that budget, you'll see the salaries for the maintenance staff, and you'll also see that pulled out number for each of the different areas. So you'll see the maintenance aquatics line, you'll see the maintenance SRC line, you'll see some other lines that will be really helpful. Under aquatics, obviously the aquatic program was not without being impacted by the pandemic, despite the fact that we were able to open and operate pretty quickly once we were given permission. But we're optimistic for the future. I shared with the board tonight that we're returning swim lessons starting on next Monday, and we have 99 enrolled children in swim lessons, which is about average for what we were averaging before the pandemic. So really good work for our staff, and we just haven't been able to tap into all of the revenue sources that we had before. So swim lessons is a big one. Rentals, we've had significantly less rentals, and then school lessons. If you aren't aware, the district is really fortunate to partner with every school basically in southern Clatsop County, as well as Warrenton and Napa and Jewel, to provide swim lessons for different age group of children. So we had Broadway Middle School in the past. Now I guess Seaside Middle School, hopefully we'll be able to get them back. We would have Gearhart Elementary and Seaside Heights. Now we'll have Pacific Ridge. And then the other schools that I mentioned, as well as Fire Mountain Academy and Cannon Beach. So as soon as those revenue streams start coming back, I think you'll see a healthier aquatic revenue line. Under aquatics, you'll also see the salaries for these positions. The Director of Programs, which is a position held by Justin Smith, and Justin oversees aquatics, recreation, fitness, and special events. So he has a lot of responsibility, and you'll also see the aquatics coordinator and then our aquatic staff, the various staff positions that are there. A coordinator, a supervisor, head lifeguards, aquatic fitness instructors, and swim lesson instructors, as well as those folks at the front desk that we call patron relation specialists. For personnel expenses, you can see this chart is a little bit misleading because we've removed the maintenance salaries from this. So you'll see a significant decrease of almost $300,000, but once we pulled that maintenance salary out, then you can actually see what we're spending in aquatics personnel. So I think it gives you a better understanding of our investment in that area. A couple of charts to help you if you're a visual person, and I know you don't have the right PowerPoint, so I apologize again. Our youth programs department, so we're really excited about the SRC for a lot of reasons, but one is that we are experiencing a significant cost savings with the acquisition. Because we're not renting space from the Seaside School District, and we have all of those programs housed in the same building and same vicinity within the building, we're having significant cost savings from what we were having before. We also have an opportunity to expand services and revenue by being able to serve more children. So because we have increased capacity, we're going to be able to fit more kids in the room because the rooms are bigger, and we also have more rooms available. Because of those things, we're expecting a 27% increase in revenue in the youth programs department. You also have in this department budget, you have the director of program salary as well as the youth center coordinator, which is a position that we're currently hiring for. Expenses are decreased significantly in the budget, 32%, which we're really happy about, and we'll continue doing our best to be, super fiscally responsible in this area. The community center, the building that you sit in right now, it's been a tough year, and I don't think I'm saying anything that surprises folks, but because senior centers are specifically mentioned in the guidance that they are to remain closed, there's really not a lot of programs that we feel comfortable or are authorized to house here. And because of that, we haven't been able to tap into some of the rental revenue and program revenue that we would have been had it been a normal year. We do have a good partnership with the city of Seaside, who owns this building, and we manage it through an intergovernmental agreement. You'll see part of the director salaries for the programs that occur here and for the operations part of that occurs here, as well as you'll see the salaries for the meal site coordinator. And I put a picture of the donor tree. I know it's right back there, but really happy to have the first phase of the Bob Chisholm Community Center refresh completely done with the addition of the donor tree. And I know there's a commission that we work with hand in hand, and they're working on a second phase of the refresh. Recreation, so you'll see the director of programs portion of the recreation budget. You'll see, in time, you'll see some revenue for leagues and fitness returning. Shared this with the board in our board meeting beforehand, but we are able to start returning indoor contact sports. So that's sports like pickleball, volleyball, basketball that can be brought back. And now that we have some space, can generate some revenue for the district. Special events, in that budget you'll see us continuing to try to grow events, and I don't mean expand the number of events, but grow participation in those events, grow sponsorship in that area. We don't have any new events planned for next fiscal year. In fact, we'll probably reduce a couple events because this year we have two, one that's our current fiscal year and one that will occur in the next fiscal year that are associated with the prom centennial, but those won't be continuing events. Our main plan for special events is to grow the Seaside Farmers Market, which now will take place on the SRC property that we actually own, which is great, and then look for some other opportunities to grow within our footprint. Some special revenue funds. So I talked a little bit about the Sunset Recreation Center, the Broadway Field Fund, and the Capital Improvement Fund. We've renamed the Capital Improvement Fund. It used to be called the Building Additions Fund, but we feel like this is a more appropriate term to label this fund because of what we expect to use the fund for moving forward. Some facts about the Sunset Recreation Center Fund. So we expect some revenue from building rental, and you'll see that in the budget. We also are transferring a sizable amount of funds from the general fund to that fund. We are predicting expenses to account for staff time. And we have in there also the accounting for a consultant that we're doing some hiring for ongoing for contract services, but we expect the majority of those funds to come out of the next fiscal year budget. We're also accounting for building expense, which is a little bit unknown right now because we have only been in the building for a few months, and we haven't even started receiving all of the utility bills yet. We're just not quite sure exactly how the building expense will work out, but we're doing our best to predict. We do know what the insurance will be, and that's included in the SRC budget. In conclusion, try to catch us up. It was an amazing and incredible year, and one that I will really hope doesn't occur again because of the challenges that were present. And I'm sure I'm not alone in sharing that, but I bet the year has been challenging for just about everybody. We're really optimistic for the opportunities in our future. It's kind of a unique time in the district, in the district's history, to be able to have the opportunity to expand programs and serve more people. But we want to do it in the right way, and I think that's what this budget will show you, is that we're not committing a sizable amount to improving the SRC or in other projects, but we're really pausing and evaluating and taking a more careful look at our resources and our assets. I believe that we've been buoyed or kept afloat over the past year by good fiscal management. We have great management staff, great finance manager, by grants, by the support of grants and being aggressive in our pursuit of those grants. And then I can't understate the impact that the assessed value growth in our area has had on the district. And I'm not an expert in this area, so I don't know if that's a continued trend or if that's something that we should expect. I'm just grateful for what it provides for us right now. And obviously we watch really carefully the impacts of the housing market, which is, such an important impact to our overall budget. I think our general process at this point has been to open it up for questions, recognizing that we are just providing the budget to you right now for the first time, and that you may have elaborate questions right now or you may not. But what our process is, and I talked to Marcus about this just today, is we are available to you to answer those questions. And whether you work through Board President Clyde or Vice Chairperson and Secretary Norman, or you want to email us directly, I think I've interacted with all of you electronically, and we look forward to answering your questions, working through the process. The only other thing that we need to establish tonight is confirmation of our next budget meeting. Unless there's other questions, I'll turn the time back over to the board chairperson.
Thank you, Skylar. It looks like Patrick has a question.
Yeah.
I have a question, since you have to review these charts, Skylar.
Yeah.
If on chart 4,
Just has to
when you're looking at other districts' permanent tax rate, could we see an apples-to-apples comparison of our tax rate against other tax rates with similar total assessed values?
Sure.
Maybe 5 above and 5 below?
Okay.
Or something along those lines? So we're looking at apples to apples.
I guess, so you don't want it like this. Sorry, tell me again what you want, as far as making sure it's apples to apples.
So like if we
Could you
could
please
just
use
see,
the
like,
microphone?
other districts' permanent tax rate by total assessed value.
Oh, okay, so you want the total assessed value number,
Maybe
okay.
like a chunk of, like maybe 5 that have, the 5 that are higher than us and maybe the 5 that are lower than us.
Okay, all right, we can do that, thanks.
Are there any other questions for Skylar?
Can we confirm our next meeting, if that's the time that folks want to meet, and make sure that that works for everybody before we adjourn? Budget chairperson?
Patrick, did you have another question?
Make a motion that we have 3 meetings. So I would like to make a motion that the budget committee meets 3 times.
Do you have a reason for that?
If I could get a second, then we could have discussion.
Was that, I didn't hear what Robert said.
He second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, so tell me, what is the process then that we have the presentation of the budget message here? That's essentially what we went over. summary of the broad picture in terms of expenditures. So then we're looking at the next meeting of going through the whole budget in terms of the departmental level. So how, in the past, did you accomplish everything in that next meeting?
Yeah, that's a great.
I guess that's what I need to know in terms of just deciding
Sure.
yes or no on 3 meetings.
Okay, so I'll only share what we've done in the past, which isn't necessarily what we have to do in the future. So we typically have only had 2 meetings, and that's, we've designated the responsibility to review the budget to the budget committee members, and they've worked with either the budget chairperson or staff to get questions answered or gather more information, and then come prepared, I guess, to that second budget committee meeting with the expectation of approving the budget at that meeting. Again, that isn't how we necessarily have to do it. If the budget committee would like us to go through the budget line by line and be more specific, we are happy to do that. It's kind of up to you folks how you want to go through this process. I know that's how some other government agencies do it, and so we're comfortable with that, but it's up to you.
So the reason for my motion was that, at least last year, it seemed like we got this information and everybody sat and looked at it for a couple weeks. We had another meeting, and when you went to ask questions, the budget's already finalized and nothing changed. And then you're pressed to approve the budget right then, because now you're pressed up against time constraints for the budget to get approved, you know, to get into the system. And it would just seem like the process would be a little smoother if we had some time to look at this. We could come back and ask some questions, and if changes needed to be made, the changes could be made, and then at the third meeting, we could look at the changes and say, yep, that's what we were looking for, and then approve the budget. That's the reason for my motion.
Skylar, can I ask for clarification? What is the deadline to have a budget finalized? What is our timeline? Just
Yeah, so there's information in the packet. I think, Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically the deadline is that the board needs to adopt the budget by the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. Okay. So working backwards from there, that's why we typically have tried to have the budget by the budget committee approved in May, and then the board would have that June board meeting to adopt, and then we can get the documentation turned into the county by their deadline. But there's definitely time for, you know, a third meeting or whatever. I mean, we have, like 8 weeks till the end of June, so.
The third meeting just would not be able to follow our board meeting because there wouldn't be another meeting until July.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point. So yeah, the third meeting, or the timeline would have to be such that the meetings would need to occur before the June board meeting, which is, I think, June 24th or something. I can look.
And
June 22nd.
Can I comment while you guys are doing that? So I serve on the transit board, and traditionally, usually, if we have the second meeting where we're making changes and things like that, some of that, the director or an officer has their computer standing by and makes changes on the screen so that we can, that way we can publish and do things instantaneous. So if we had that capability, that might further speed things along.
Okay. I think we can
to
arrange that.
everybody's-
I mean, we got the technology, so
Yeah.
shouldn't be a issue.
Okay. Just a suggestion.
I would suggest, just in case, can you understand me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm not used to playing with a microphone. Yeah. Okay. I know there's a timing issue between that May 25th and the June adoption date because you have publication requirements. And getting the LB forms prepared for publication. So there's a timing. So what I would suggest that just in case we need a third meeting, that we actually have a special meeting between now and May 25th to discuss the budget so that we get in a position where we're not talking about a rush type thing. We understand exactly what we're doing and approving, and we can simply handle that by a special meeting between now and May 25th, and then the May 25th meeting would be there in the event that we need that third meeting. I think it's too easy for us to fall into a situation of electronic meetings. I've been with a couple other, some fraternal organizations on Zoom meetings, and it's just like having a doctor's appointment electronically on a video, that they don't really do a proper examination. And I think that's the same thing that would happen to us on an electronic issue, that we would not have, as a group, the proper interplay and review, and then the back and forth coming from the management to clarify any issues that might arise. So I'm not in favor of any electronic meetings.
And I would second that as well. It doesn't allow for public interaction to the discussion at hand.
Amber, sorry, I just don't quite understand why we can't just have the, like somebody had mentioned, have the spreadsheet opened and making the adjustments in the meeting. Like, why can't we just see that live, the adjustments being made, and then finalize? Okay, okay. I guess I don't understand why that's not acceptable.
So first of all, I can speak. We don't have the experience of seeing how it went. So what we're trying to do is to prevent needing another meeting and not having it because we have more questions, or we thought we were going to get an answer and we didn't get it, or, gee, he raised a great question I didn't think about, and so I want to ask another question, and then we're running over time and we need that third meeting. But if we schedule that third meeting and we finish everything up during the second meeting, then that's fine. And I think that, yes, we can ask certain questions via email, especially if we're talking to Marcus or something, to clarify this PERS rate, or why is someone getting this increase, why is someone getting that increase, why is this, that. But then when we come together, I'm the only one that knows that, and it's good then to be able to share it in case someone else had a similar question. But again, then if everything goes real smoothly, like you say that it might, then boom, okay, we're canceling the May 25th meeting.
So just to be clear, though, could the second meeting be the May 25th one, with the third meeting scheduled after that? Is there any, because...
I think if the second meeting's the 25th, that puts too much of a crunch to get things finalized by a third meeting to get published. Is that correct?
No, we could do a third meeting, it just could not be right after the board meeting on whatever that one in June is.
The June.
So it has to
right.
be before that date.
So can I...
How much time do you need before June 30th to have your finalized budget and get it published?
Our finalized budget gets published at, it needs to be published at the, Skylar, what day is the board meeting in June?
It's on June 22nd.
So on June 22nd is the date that we have to have it approved, because that's when the board meeting.
Yeah,
We can do a meeting
the
before that.
adopted budget, but you
Yeah.
have to have the LB forms produced and advertised. What's the
Right.
date for that?
So that's, I don't have my paper in front of me. I believe that it's
Here,
twice in 10 days, I think, is what it is.
You need a calendar?
here, look, hey, I got it right here, you wanna look it up?
Yeah.
So I'd like to make another, offer another friendly amendment. Could we amend to, that we designate a third meeting if necessary to follow the May 25th, simply for the sake of holding it on people's calendars, so that we can know that we're scheduling it. But with the understanding that if we are able to finish and seal the budget on May 25th, that we cancel that third meeting.
If I heard you right, I
Well,
think
we
that's
have to
my
have a budget
position.
hearing on the final
That if
budget.
we have a special meeting between now and the 25th, and then at that meeting, we get through everything, we don't have, and then we can decide that, okay, then we don't have the 25th meeting.
I think the question was, if we keep the second meeting on the 25th.
Correct.
And have a third meeting June 6th or something.
No, well, I don't know whether.
As long as it's before the 22nd.
The issue is when you have to have that publication on the LB form.
So the LB form has to be between 30, no more than 30 days and no less than 5. But depending on how it falls, it could be up to 8 or 9, depending on how the newspaper prints only twice a week. So that's what we have to recognize.
Yeah, that's
The other
true.
part to
Yeah.
consider is that every budget hearing meeting is required to have 10 days notice posted. So that would also require us to match what the newspaper states or when they run. So it could be 12 to 13 days depending on their run cycle.
Yeah.
So the paper publishes on a Thursday, the 22nd is a Tuesday, so if we back up,
I believe that it does Tuesdays and Thursdays.
oh, is it Tuesday, 22nd?
What if we kept the final meeting on the 25th of May, and we put in the in-between meeting on the 18th of May? We meet on the 18th, we get any questions ironed out, we get any changes made that we want to change, and the 25th is just a come in and approve the budget, and it's good to go.
I will not be available on the 18th. I have family travel plans with grandson graduating from high school.
I have a question just based on the fact that that's the election day. Is there an issue because of that?
Only in Mexico. Shut down the bars.
Ellen's erupted.
So, but if, just so for clarity, so if we did that, then I would have to still publish notice for the meeting on the 25th, even if we're not going to use the meeting? Because I have to do 10 days in
Yeah.
advance. So I would have to post that
You're going to do that anyway.
for the third meeting?
Yeah. But it could be just a formality of coming in and approving all the changes that we made the 18th. Just to make sure all the changes got in. We sit down on the 18th, we ask any questions, we propose changes, and then on the 25th, we just look at them, we say they look good, and we approve the budget.
So I would propose the date being May 11th instead of the 18th. We already have to assemble as a board on the 11th?
Gives us 2 weeks.
Correct.
Look at this.
Yeah, that sounds, May 11th and.
Just, in other words, the board is having to come back and meet weekly for long meetings, so, yeah.
Sure, perfect.
That's fine, they have enough time for notification, so, excellent, gives you 14 days accommodation. That's fine.
So who seconded that?
I'll second it.
And she meant.
Okay.
We have an amended motion.
Any other-
We have a
any
motion
other
on the table
dis-
already, don't we?
Okay, you got an amended motion.
We already have a
I'll
motion
second
on the
the
table.
amended.
Any other discussion about adding a meeting on May 11th?
And so are we still, we're still working under the, just for clarification, are we voting on the amended motion that we shall meet on May 11th? We have a scheduled date of May 25th, which we may or may not need to meet on if we finish the budget deliberations on May 11th, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Aye.
We will meet on May 11th next then, at 7 p.m.
Skylar will be bringing us dinner that day. Because it will be a long day. Yeah.
Skylar, before we
I'm a
adjourn-
vegetarian, Skylar.
Before we adjourn,
Okay.
the summary sheet of the general fund. On line item 11, the bequest, is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah, the bequest foundations, the actual 1920, 184,636. Do you have sort of a remembrance what makes that up in such a huge amount?
Money. Marcus, are you looking at that? Yeah. I think that could have been, last fiscal year we got, we applied for a lot of support through grants for coronavirus, and maybe that's where that was put. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think it should have been for the line below that.
So that should have been in grants and sponsorship? Okay.
So I will correct that.
Well, the 184 should be on the next line.
Well, 168 of it was the COVID fund,
Yeah,
right?
it was 100, I can't tell you the exact amount off the top of my head, but I can email that.
Yeah, is that what that 140,000 is in the 2021 fiscal year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And, all right, good. All right, thank you.
Is everybody good? Meeting adjourned, 8:50, 8:40.
Thanks, Catherine. I think that does us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.